What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Halving Report podcast with myself, your host, Brad Mines. The price of Bitcoin is approximately $27,000 US, and there's 325 days left until the next Bitcoin halving. For those of you who don't know, the initial block rewards for Bitcoin was 50 Bitcoin. Now it's 6.25. When the next Bitcoin halving occurs, the Bitcoin block reward will reduce to 3.125. Today, we have Adam O'Brien back on the show. Adam is the CEO of Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is a Canadian company that very much keeps up the ideals of Bitcoin. Bitcoin Well has just started its expansion into the United States. We're super excited to have Adam back on the report and talk to him about everything from Bitcoin savings technology to the great AI push. Without further ado, everybody, welcome Adam O'Brien to the show. Adam, welcome back to the Halving Report podcast.
My man, it is great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I feel honored twice. I get to make a duel. Is this 2 or 3? I get to make a duel appearance.
This is our second time. Yeah, no, this is our second time recording together. It's definitely an exclusive club to be on the Halving Report twice. We're happy to have you on. You were pretty awesome last time. I think you even had a couple Michael Saylor moments. We made a couple reels, TikToks that went together pretty cool. Hoping we can have another great conversation today. I want to start by asking you about Bitcoin Well. You guys have expanded to the US. If you could tell us about that and what you've noticed so far.
Yeah, man. Well, so official expansion actually is taking off this week, which is good. So the way that we're doing it is like to go to the States. In Canada, for example, when you sell Bitcoin, you're licensed by kind of a governing body across the country, with the exception of Quebec, because Quebec just does a whole bunch of things weird. And so you have to get like 2 licenses basically to sell across the country. In the States, you need 50. And so we did it with a partner in the States to kind of get our feet wet and help us understand a little bit of what the market is going to be and just help us, grow fairly organically in there. So working with the partner, we've been integrating with them for almost 6 weeks now. And actually, like today, the live test is presumably having gone through like any moment now, and then we'll be launching in beta. So if anyone's watching and they want to be a part of the beta and they're in the US, then you can reach out to me at adam@bitcoinwell.com. And then once the beta is good to go, probably about 2 weeks we'll spend in beta, like just cleaning some last minute things up, and then boom, we'll be live and right away. So the first iteration is just basically like, sign up, link your bank account, and then you can buy Bitcoin. Super, super basic, immediately withdrawn, self-custody, all the good stuff. Then we'll be working on recurring buy. And the goal is to launch recurring buy this like early summer for both Canada and the US. So that's kind of what we're like driving towards for a big summer launch, to get those DCA, get that Bitcoin savings plan fully installed for Canadians and Americans.
Awesome, man. I'm looking forward to a hot Bitcoin summer. Last time we spoke, I don't know if we spoke about it, but you guys also do direct payments. You can pay your bills in Canada with Bitcoin. Do you mind touching upon that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a really cool one. This is actually, I think, the product that I use of ours the most, and also the one that I think one of the most unique things that we do. So functionally, there is no way to pay your Visa with Bitcoin because Visa doesn't take Bitcoin. There's also no way for you to buy like a pizza from your pizza shop with Bitcoin, unless you're living in 2010 and buying a Papa John's from England. There's no way to buy Bitcoin with pizza or pizza with Bitcoin because pizza shops don't take Bitcoin. And so what we've developed is a function where you can pay for that pizza with your Visa card and then go to bitcoinwell.com/bills, and you can pay that bill off with Bitcoin, kind of like ideally within that 28-day window where you have that interest-free grace period from your credit card. So you can kind of use Visa's money to pay for things and then give all that money back in Visa. And the cool thing about the way we've built this is much like our e-transfer platform, where you don't have to log in to use it. You can just send an e-transfer and receive Bitcoin to your Bitcoin address. The same thing with your bill payment address. So we kind of give you a static address for that Visa card, and then you can just keep sending Bitcoin, and every single Bitcoin that touches that address on the blockchain, boom, automatically converted, automatically payment is made towards your Visa card. So pretty excited about that. I think this is kind of like the next step towards Bitcoin usability. Right now, our organization is like that middle point between native Bitcoin adoption in the real world and like being able to use Bitcoin for nicks and knacks and stuff that you want to use Bitcoin for in your daily life. So kind of a nice hybrid situation there. And yeah, it's been pretty cool. It's kind of been a slow start. Like paying your hydro bill in Bitcoin sucks when, you know, transaction fees are $10 and $12. Paying, you know, a couple $100 in fees for a hydro bill doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think we'll see that, like we'll see usability of that come a lot further when we've got better layer 2 solutions, as well as when the fees come down.
For sure. And probably as price go up too, I would imagine. I mean, what type of people would want to use those services at this point? People that are kind of hodled for a long time and just want that direct transfer out of their Bitcoin account?
Well, yes and no. I think it's funny. I have this conversation a lot with people. Joey and I from the CBP had this conversation, and I called him out on it, and I'll happily do it again. He was like, "Oh, I never sell. I got diamond hands," and I was like, "Oh, if you're not selling Bitcoin, then you're not all in. If you don't need to sell Bitcoin, you have too much fiat. If you're like you know." I've got you have to spend to live. You have to eat. You need rent or a mortgage. Maybe your kids play sports, like whatever. You absolutely need to spend money to live. And if you got some spare fiat kicking around that you can use to fund your lifestyle, well, that spare fiat is dead until you use it. And so my take is that if you're not selling Bitcoin to fund your lifestyle, you are not all in on Bitcoin. And so it's those people that are using the service. It's miners, you know, like I'm largely debanked. So I kind of am forced to use that service to a lesser extent than others. But those are the kind of people that are using it today. And then you're right. As numbers go up, we're going to see a lot more adoption, I would think, of people using Bitcoin to pay for things.
Right. Now you're getting a lot more into the content creation, I've noticed. So I wanted to ask you, you know, what's your big push in that direction, and what have you learned from doing it so far?
It's way different than when I did it in 2017, 2016. If you go on my YouTube channel, you'll see a lot of non-Bitcoin related content from ages ago. I kind of vlogged my life in like 2015, 16, 17, and it was a completely different game. So I've noticed like I'm falling into some old kind of 2015, 2016 YouTube habits that I have to just eradicate and like change for the new algorithm, I guess. The end game there, though, is purely education. I think there's a pretty significant, I don't want to say there's a gap, because I think that the current Bitcoin content creators, influencers are doing a really, really good job of like spreading the good word and what's out there. But I don't think there's someone with my experience that's done this. Like I've been in this business for 10 years. I built up basically like Alberta's first Bitcoin ATM, Saskatchewan's first Bitcoin AM. We were the first publicly traded non-custodial Bitcoin company. We're launching into the States. Like I know what it's like to be debanked. Like I've been debanked from dozens of banks. I've got a wealth of experience that I think can be beneficial and can help people. And then also too, I want people to be invested and get them involved in what we're doing and what we're building. I think it's exciting, and it's my job now to help them find the company. And then, I believe in what we do. I'm a strong believer in non-custodial Bitcoin. I'm a strong believer in people taking direct custody of their Bitcoin immediately and by default, and then learning how to use a hardware wallet, learning how to set up a node, learning how to transfer money from peer-to-peer, learning how to live on Bitcoin, learning how to securely store their private keys. What do I do? How do I, a question we get asked all the time, how do I put it in my will? Like people have like straight up written private keys in their will and just given it to their lawyer. Like, no, don't do that. You can actually do stuff to protect yourself, and like, here's a dead man switch, or like, that's a pretty extreme case, but I think that education is so crucial, and we're an education first organization. We always have been. I'm super lucky now. We have an amazing team that's able to handle all of, if not all, the day-to-day operations. And I am here to just tell the story of Bitcoin well and educate about Bitcoin. And that's kind of where I belong at this stage of my career.
Just kind of circling back, I've seen so much about artificial intelligence now, an AI push. Are you interested in this? Are you incorporating it? Do you think this is something you may use in the future?
Great question, man. I think that AI and crypto are pretty like good together. AI and Bitcoin, like Bitcoin in my mind is a savings tool, which is inherently boring. Like your savings should be so boring because they're automatic. There's very little volatility, and it's kind of like preconceived. Like you know exactly what you're getting from your savings account. So we're not here like actually this today I was on another show and we were talking about where we were talking about this movement towards trading engines and how there's like lots of trading engines, and that's just not what we are. We aren't some like crypto casino, take your position, take some margin, close your position, you know, here's a short squeeze, let's ride. Where AI really thrives in that environment, we're like a sound money shop. It's like, okay, set up your Bitcoin savings plan, $50 a week going into Bitcoin, like brush your hands, get some TXID management when you've got, you know, when it's appropriate, and off you go. And so I don't there's not a lot of room for you know, hardcore AI or generative AI within our platform today. But in the future and down the line, like I can certainly see a case where artificial intelligence enhances your Bitcoin experience. That said, anytime you give control to a robot, you're exposed to the person that wrote that robot. And so I would be very, very cautious about platforms that, you know, you're effectively giving your money to, giving the keys to the kingdom to, in order to save yourself some education or save yourself some time. Bitcoin is a time storage vehicle, and it's appropriate that we invest our time to learn how to use it properly. I mean, taking email as an example, if you don't learn about email and you don't learn about the dangers of email, and some guy named Adam O'Brien emails you and says, "Hey man, I want to give you $1 million. Just give me your Visa card and your SIN number so I can do that." And you're like, "Oh, this is Adam because his name says Adam, so it must be all good." And then you just like handle all the info. Well, you're screwed. Like that doesn't work. That's just not good. So I definitely think that there's room to learn about Bitcoin. There's room for AI, but I would much rather society as a whole learns how to use Bitcoin first, and then we can find little ways to make it a little bit more efficient.
Yeah, definitely seems to be a big push right now. You know, 2023 has been much about it. I think I saw, you know, Google's going to be integrating AI rather than having web pages popped up. It's going to be like a Google interface.
Yeah, they have already. And I also saw, you know, remember Paradigm? I think they were the largest crypto and Web3 fund in the world. They raised like a $2.5 billion fund. They have like completely switched gears over to AI. Like, I mean, it's very, very apparent just how much of a buzzword and how much of like a, you know, that was a top for like this crypto Web3 kind of narrative. It's like, oh, we were Web3, but now we're AI. Like here we are, here we go. And it'll be interesting to see the next 6 months. Are we still AI, or are these VCs, like these trendy VCs, just ripping down the line of whatever's hot kind of in the moment?
Yeah, very much a possibility. You know, like you, we like to educate here on the Halving Report. We obviously try to make the halving and the cycles sort of like an awareness campaign for my podcast here. We are, I think, 48 weeks away roughly from the next Bitcoin halving. You know, how do you see this next halving playing out in regards to the price of Bitcoin?
Great question, man. You always got good questions. I think price will be less affected than it has in the past because while the straight up economics of the halving are the same, power stays static or energy consumption stays static, reward gets cut in half. The difference between like 50 to 25 Bitcoin is so much greater than 6.25 to 3.125. And so in my mind, like right now, all the miners that are mining, like all the big institutional miners, the ones that like really truly set the price of Bitcoin, they've all been in the game for 5 or 6 years now, and they've all stocked Bitcoin from like we'll call them cheap blocks, or we'll call them big blocks, or whatever you want to call them, but from blocks when they were mining getting 12.5 Bitcoin per block. So I don't think the price will go as like parabolic as it has strictly because of the mining, but I like the halving does have an effect on price strictly because you have the same costs and you get half the product. So what happens? The product has to double. Like that's just the math, and that's the macro math. That's the long-term economic macro math that helps me believe in Bitcoin, that gives me 100% certainty that Bitcoin is the only place, the only secure place to store the value that I create with my time. But on the micro, who knows, man? And it's coupled with market FOMO. It's coupled with debt ceiling being raised every 6 months. It's coupled with bank illiquidity. It's coupled with El Salvador's debt bond or Bitcoin bond. Like we have all these other factors, and now we have the halving, and it's like, what's going to contribute to it? Like it's like Bitcoin is just this ball of energy, and we're just ready to just explode. So that's to put it very technically, that's how I would say it.
Shifting gears a little bit, I wanted to ask you if you saw the Bitcoin Twitter beef between James Lopp and Jason P. Lowry over his critique on his thesis Soft War.
No, I didn't. I thought when you talk about Twitter beef, I thought you were going to go into Rodolfo and Francis about stainless steel and cast iron pans. But no, enlighten me on the beef between James. Let me look it up here.
Yeah, for sure. So while you're looking it up, I'll just give you a quick rundown that Jason P. Lowry has released this thesis. It's like a textbook based on Bitcoin and its national strategic defense. And I'm not finished the book yet. It's a long read and tough to get through. He doesn't start talking about Bitcoin till, way beyond the point I'm in. But James Lopp, I'm sure you've heard of him. He's written a critique about it. However, he hasn't actually read the book. He was saying he couldn't find a free PDF version. He refused to pay the $40 for the book, wrote a critique on it. And they were just kind of beefing back and forth. I think Jason's blocked him at this point. I think. Yeah, no, I was just curious if you went down that rabbit hole at all and what you thought about Jason's thesis. But maybe it's something we can come back to on your third time on the Halving Report.
Oh man, getting an advanced invite is that's an honor. Yeah, I don't have a ton of thoughts on
you would be the only one
that. I haven't read the book, obviously, so not a huge. I don't have a massive opinion on it. It's funny that we take, though, like just societally, and this is kind of where I feel like education needs, like that's the important debate within the Bitcoin community. But I seem to think that we're going to lose normies in that important debate. And I've actually been working on a talk for Bitcoiners and to speak of at Bitcoin conferences about how to orange pill a normie, because I feel like we're kind of like, we as a collective, as Bitcoiners, we all want the same thing, which is hyper Bitcoinization. And we've kind of like camped ourselves into different paths. We've got like, have fun staying poor, not going to make it, like, basically screw you. I don't have time for you. See you later. And we take that from, what is it? Satoshi's comment on the Bitcoin Talk forum. Like, I don't have the time to explain it. So see you later. And that's one side. And then we've got this like ultra inclusive, like, well, CBDCs are a gateway into Bitcoin, so those are fine. It's like, no, that's also not fine. Like, CBDCs are the death of freedom and will not increase Bitcoin adoption. CBDCs are meant to trick people into getting those instead of Bitcoin. So we've got to find this middle ground of, like, mom and dad shouldn't fight at the dinner table. And we've got mom, like the example of this beef. And again, I didn't read it. I didn't see it. I don't know what the full intents are, but at first glance, that feels like mom and dad fighting at the dinner table. And we should be focused on how do we collectively make Bitcoin more accessible, easier to use, and, how do we get people who are currently afraid of holding their private key? How do we explain to them that it's not that scary? How do we explain to them that it's a necessary thing to do for your sovereignty? We have people who are massive risk takers that refuse to hold their private key because what if I lose it, or what if something happens? And they don't trust the protocol, they don't trust themselves. And I think that we need to focus our efforts driving down that path, in my opinion. Now, again, I didn't see it. I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts at first glance.
For sure. And what was the other Twitter beef you were talking about? I'm not aware of that one.
That was just a joke. I think it was Francis. You know who Francis is? Founder of Bull Bitcoin, and NVK from. He's from CoinKite. He's the founder of CoinKite. They were talking about pans. And I think Saifedean was the first one to come out and say stainless steel pans is like superior to cast iron, which sparked some drama in the Bitcoin community. And then I think recently NVK has come out and said the same same thing. I'm trying to find it here, but I can't. But yeah, anyways, it's just in jest. It's all pretty useless and fun. But it's funny, man. If you ever need a good laugh, ride down the stainless steel versus cast iron pan, like Twitter, hole of just useless debate. It's pretty funny.
Definitely will do. But like you mentioned though, like mom and dad shouldn't argue at the dinner table. That's a really good comparison there. And it's funny, and it's like even two Bitcoin maxis going at it, right? So I see this a lot in the community. I find a lot of people in the Bitcoin community very well educated on Bitcoin and economics, but sometimes I find them to be a little bit extreme in their political views. Do you see that as well? And how do you kind of navigate the space but with all the polarization?
Yeah, man, I definitely see it. I generally don't love polarization. I think that Bitcoin is so political by the nature that it's so freedom focused, and like all politics is just varying levels of trading freedom for protection. So like Bitcoin, by giving utmost freedom and eliminating most, kind of higher power protections, is already so political, and by nature just attracts those kinds of people. I don't think we need to lean into it. Like, I mean, who was the Democratic candidate that was announcing like presidency at Bitcoin 2023 this year? It's like, do we need politicians at our Bitcoin events? Like, is this what we've come to now? Or can we be better than that? Like, I feel like money and state need to be decoupled, and when you bring politics into the money, I guess we just run the risk of driving those kinds of fiat practices, and so that's my caution. How do I navigate it? I don't like. I'm pretty apolitical myself. I don't really care one way or another. I'm a freedom. Like I like freedom through and through. I believe in personal sovereignty, and I believe in people doing good things because they believe the world should be better. And so I guess by virtue of those things, I'm put into a certain political camp. But I try to kind of like, especially in Bitcoin circles, I personally, I think I tend to draw closer to high level. How does this help people? what's the alternative to what I'm suggesting, and then driving down the route of why do you believe that? Why do you believe that? Why do you believe that? Right? Oh, well, we should freeze all the bank accounts. Okay, how does that help people? Oh, well, then money laundering wouldn't happen. Well, define money laundering for me. Well, it's obviously this and this. Okay, well, who makes those rules, and who should have the ability to change those rules, and who should have the ability to make that decision? And it's like, oh, well, the government should. It's like, well, what if it's a government that you don't like, right? Because we live in a democracy, and so you have a 50-50 chance of getting a government that you want. And what if the government changes, and then they have the ability to change? Is that what you want? Well, no, actually, that doesn't sound very good either. And so we just kind of run it down from this, like, why do you think that? And then drawing scenarios from why that's important. And like the answer always comes back to Bitcoin. The answer is always more freedom is better. But we, the Bitcoin community, have to understand there's a collective, like Spider-Man, great power comes great responsibility. There's power in freedom money. There's power in Bitcoin, and we have a responsibility to educate people about how that power can be used. And so it's like, yeah, it's a tough thing to navigate, but I think it's like one of the most important things we could possibly do. Like, we're literally watching money and state be decoupled before our very eyes. My kids will not know what a Federal Reserve is, and I'm fully confident in that. And so while this like limbo period happens, which is going to be full of peril and decimation of savings accounts and like very, very bad economic times, we have to educate as many people as possible so that that period is as harmless and as short as can possibly be. And Bitcoin is the only way for that to happen.
Adam, you're super eloquent when it comes to explain to Bitcoin, so it's a really good thing that you're in the Bitcoin education space. But I wanted to ask you, what resources do you like to use in this space? How often do you use them?
That's a good question. I probably don't read as much as I should. I would like to, but I would say that my Bitcoin knowledge, my technical Bitcoin knowledge comes from our team here. They spend more time researching and playing with Bitcoin than I do. We actually toyed around the idea of making a BIP a few weeks ago. We've added it to down the line, if we have some free time, here's what we're going to spend a couple of weeks really, really buttoning up. Dave, who's our chief revenue officer at the organization, he's about as OG as they get. Poor guy is terribly ugly, but very, very smart. So we keep him around for that reason. And he knows his stuff about Bitcoin. So him and I definitely chat a lot about technical Bitcoin stuff. But I'd say what I found success is in seeing the philosophy behind Bitcoin and relating it back to the philosophy of current events and of the world. And you'd be hard pressed to send me a topic or ask me about a current event, and I wouldn't be able to pull the philosophy from Bitcoin and apply it to fixing that current event. And so that's kind of where I spend my time. Right now we're building products for normies. We're building products like, I want Bitcoin Well to be the place that people go because they have the ability to learn about and use Bitcoin for the first time. And we're a safe, kind of open place to have them ask questions and to have them truly understand the value of Bitcoin. And so we need to be on the up and up in having real world applications for Bitcoin. And that's kind of where I live right now. And that's kind of where I would say my time is spent to kind of develop those resources. And when I don't have an answer, right, if you have a topic for me and I was like, oh man, how does Bitcoin fix this? Then that's where I get to dive down a rabbit hole and really investigate and learn a little bit more about what's going on there.
Awesome. Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure it helps having, a very knowledgeable team there at Bitcoin Well that you guys can sit down and, shoot these conversations back and forth. Adam, you guys are very focused on self-custody, cold storage. Ledger has been in the headlines lately for a vulnerability. I'm not sure how well versed you are in what's been happening there, but have you seen what's happening there?
Yeah, man. So like, I'm assuming you're talking about their like recovery product, if you want to call it that. Yeah. I think they're on the right track to an extent. What they needed to do and where they messed up was they messed up, and what they did was they exposed all of their products by simply acknowledging and pushing an update that could expose the product later. So like the key point of cold storage is that no one, even the factory, can access your seed. And what they showed was with an update, the factory can see, or at least have access to, your seed. And that calls into question a lot of things. It calls into question other manufacturers, and also it calls into question what's been pushed that we don't know about. Lots of the popular, lots of the easy to use hardware wallets are closed source. You can't audit the code. So it's definitely a bit of a scary and interesting time. Personally, I think that they went about the right thing the wrong way. Collaborative custody, as we move towards kind of more normie adoption, collaborative custody is going to be pretty important because of what I said earlier. Because whether we like it or not, Bitcoin is a scary thing, and for first timers putting their wealth in Bitcoin, it's scary to hold on their own. I have been beating this drum for almost 10 years, and it's just been pushback along the way. But what I found is people using a custodial solution, then moving to self-custody kind of over time. And so where they effed up, in my opinion, is having it be pushed to old products rather than just making a whole brand new chipset, a whole brand new product. And then they could say, look, this is the one that's exposed. This is, because if you look at, like, there's a spectrum like this, and this is security and this is convenience. Depending on where you are on the spectrum, it's like it's a perfect movement. And the closer you get to security, the further away you are from convenience, and vice versa. And so, Ledger needs to have products, and all hardware wallets should have products on this scale. And like, no, we're hyper secure. We're not convenient at all. And that's our brand, and we own it, right? Look at the cold card. Like, cold card is scary. I'm an OG. I've been doing this 10 years. I've gone through plenty of cold cards. I've set them up, dice rolls. Let's go. I do that multiple times a year. And still, when I'm setting it up, I have like that first transaction's like a little bit of panic until you see it on the blockchain and you're like, okay, I'm good. And so for someone who's just walking into this as like, oh, I heard about Bitcoin 2 months ago at Christmas dinner, and now I'm going to snap my fingers and be a Bitcoin expert. No, not going to happen. So we need products on that scale. They're like, yeah, look, we're not as secure as we can be, but we're pretty secure and we're very convenient. And if that's like a stepping stone, then less good than like full on self-custody, ultra secure, not super convenient. Less good than that, but way better than like, oh yeah, my coins are on Coinbase and this is perfect. Like, so there's definitely some stepping stones to get there. And I think that I hope that societally we will continually be moving closer to security and away from convenience, right? Put the work in and be sovereign, basically.
For sure. I think, partial self-custody at the beginning to kind of learn how it works, and then when you're ready to take that leap and you have a bigger chunk, more skin in the game, it's probably definitely best to take that leap to go to full self-custody in a very secure environment. And that, like you said, that takes time. You can't just be in the space for 2 months and feel super comfortable. Like you said, you've been around for a decade and you still get those butterflies in your stomach when you go to send that on-chain transaction or a big transaction, right? And I certainly I haven't been in the space long as you, but about 5 years, and I definitely still get that feeling. Adam, last time you were on the show, we spoke about some of your Bitcoin art and collectibles. Wondering if you have anything new, or maybe you could tell us about a favorite piece that you have.
Yeah, good question. Here, let me see if I can move this camera. I've got 4 pieces up here by Madex that are awesome. Here, one sec. So these, you can't really see it in the, one sec more. So this is kind of my work wall here. I've got Madex on the top there. So we've got like Atlas Shrugged, 21 million, pretty awesome. A Don't Wait with a wicked car. We've got the Ohm symbol and infinity in the middle there. Pretty sweet. A Hodalon rocket ship, and then proof of work bulldozer, which is pretty, awesome. You can see I've got some children's art mixed in there as well, and then another Madex piece. This piece right here is another Madex piece. You can kind of see it says "Don't wait" up there. I'm not sure if we had these last time or not. And actually, this is an interesting one right here. That's a check from a bank that debanked me, and I was quite proud of how we handled the debankment, I guess. And so I hung that up for the memories. I'm probably a little bit early. I'm still too reliant on the banking system for the business to go ahead and start, outing. But that's going to be, dude, I've got so much just receipts and the collateral damage from my banking experience, the phone calls, the recordings. I've got tens of hours, and it's going to be an insane book. Whenever I'm ready to write that book.
Definitely. Well, you have to let me know when you start working on that. That'd be interesting to see. Adam, we've covered a lot today, spitting questions at you here from one end to the other in the world of Bitcoin. Last time you were on the show, you left us with words of wisdom of cold storage and determining what you actually own. I'm going to open it up again for you. If there's anything that you think that's going on in the world of Bitcoin that we haven't touched upon, or maybe some new words of wisdom for myself and my listeners. If not, just let us know where we can follow you and learn more, Adam.
Oh man, I just get to run my mouth for a few minutes about all my thoughts. This is like the holy grail of Adam's brain here. I think, honestly, something that I've been really, really passionate about lately is this concept that, our money is just fake. and it's infuriating to me that people say that Bitcoin is not real, or that Bitcoin is not backed by anything. And then they have the audacity to claim that the US dollar or the Canadian dollar is backed by something, and it's verifiably false that fiat currencies are backed by anything in 2023. You could maybe argue it's backed by the GDP of an economy, but when you lead into the GDP of the economy, it doesn't accurately take in to a consideration the debt required to earn that GDP. And so if our dollar is truly backed by GDP, we'll call it net GDP, we're in huge trouble, because the total supply of money backed by net GDP in Canada, dollars are less than pennies at that point. So it's like I've got this real problem with people claiming that. And so I don't think that's anyone watching this show. If you're watching this show, I would expect, or maybe not expect, I would hope that you've maybe at least come as far as to know that Bitcoin is simple algorithmic money storage or time storage. But what I would call you to do is I would definitely urge you to find good resources and find a good script is the wrong word, but a good amount of thought put into why Bitcoin works. And here you go. I'll let me offer something from Adam. Bitcoin is backed by the energy in which it takes, or it consumes. And the reason that's good, and the reason that's not bad, the reason that's why it's a perfect relationship with our money, is because your money, your time, the value you create with your time is also backed by the energy in which you spend to create value. If you lie on the couch 24 hours a day and do nothing, you will earn $0. If you go out and work for 15 hours, you will earn something, right? Even the guy on the street corner with a cup in his hand and a cardboard sign earns a dollarly or an hourly wage. And I think that we can then tie the value that we create with our time back to the money that we earn. And Bitcoin is the same thing. The difference is we spend energy, we give our energy to the protocol for it to then spit out basically a fair value token. And when you consider money being that way, it just makes so much more sense. The math works, the science works, the physics works. Bitcoin is backed by the energy in which it consumes. And I think that's a very, very important detail in a world of, fairy money and debt ceilings being raised and other problems like that.
Yeah, the relationship with Bitcoin and energy is just astonishing to me. And I've been diving into, I've speaking to a few people. I've had a few people on the podcast talking about it, but to really understand it and grasp it and how things are going to change and how Bitcoin is already changing and incentivizing renewable energy and making use of wasted energy. I'm reading a book right now that just explains it so well, and I'm so grateful to have this resource right now. But yes, super interesting, and great last piece of advice for us is to kind of pay attention to that. So thank you, Adam. It's always a pleasure to have you on the Halving Report podcast. So again, we'll have to do it again. I hope you'll be willing to come on and answer my questions again, and update myself, my listeners, of course, as well, with the industry and everything that's going on with you, Adam. So thanks for doing this today.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me, man. Looking forward to the next one.
Hey you, thanks for listening to the Halving Report podcast. If you like the show and want to support, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and be sure to leave us a comment. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Halving Report. If you're a Canadian and you want to buy Bitcoin or cryptocurrency for the first time, get a $20 bonus when you go to bitbuy.ca/halving. If you want $30 off the ultimate digital asset security device BitFi, go to halvingreport.com/bitfi for more information. Until next time, I'm Brad Mines.